I'm guessing you're still in quarantine there, are you?
Yeah, so I'm here for the next 7 days, 6 days. I don't know, it's all blurring into one long stretch. But it's kind of been great because of Dylan's birthday. I've been so busy and there's so much online stuff, and I've kind of been very much living on planet Dylan. So I've been able to engage with all of, I went to the Dylan Symposium on the weekend and I've been rehearsing the show, and I'm not too bored or anything.
No time to be bored by the sounds of it. All right, we'll just have a bit of a chat about background and also about the wonderful album you put out last year and the upcoming tour, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. As a young girl growing up in Wagga Wagga, where and how were you discovering the music that eventually began to move you?
Most of the music that I listened to came to me from records from my parents' collection. And I guess that goes some way to explaining why I've got quite old-fashioned tastes, really, for someone of my generation. I'm really enchanted by the Laurel Canyon sound and that sort of the music that was happening in New York and LA in the 1960s and the 70s, and in London too, and Nashville. I was just very, very drawn to as a teenage girl. I taught myself to sing listening to Linda Ronstadt records. I got really obsessed with Linda Ronstadt, and I learned a lot by singing along to those albums in my bedroom, and that's how I got started. It's funny, the country Australia in the 90s, it was pretty isolated. And it's so strange to think about that now that we live in this wide world of the internet where you have accessibility to all art and music and culture at all times. But really back then, if you wanted to hear a song that you liked, you either had to stay glued to the radio, which I did, or have the record on vinyl or CD or cassette. It was a completely different time.
So talk us through your transition from radio broadcaster to musician. Was there a defining moment where it became apparent that was the switch you were going to have to make?
I took a road trip, a Thelma and Louise style road trip across the United States just before I turned 30. It was my Saturn return for listeners who are into astrology. And I'm very much, I kind of had a little bit of an existential crisis. I fell in love with this idea that I'd go to America and start making music. And when I reflect on it now, it seems absolutely insane. But I was still just young enough to do something a little bit foolish. And so I did this road trip with my girlfriend, a girlfriend of mine, Zoe, and then I very quickly got back to Sydney and started working out, dreaming and scheming, I call it, how I could get to go and live in the United States and what that would look like. I get asked, why Nashville? And I mean, certainly I'm very drawn to particularly classic country singers like George Jones and Johnny Cash and Patty Wynette, Patsy Cline. But I'm more of an indie rocker at heart. And the reality of my life is that I couldn't afford to live in LA or New York on my Aussie dollars and my savings from my day job. Nashville at the time that I moved there, it's changed a little bit now, was a fantastically affordable place to go and try and have a crack at being a musician.
Did you have any preconceived notions of what living in Nashville would be like, and did it turn out as you expected?
Yes, I had preconceived notions, and they were all confirmed for me in a way. And then it kind of, when you live somewhere, you see the kind of darker side of it too. I mean, Nashville is funny. It's a little bit. It's hard to get inside as a town because it's got a really polished set of veneers. It's got the Stetson hat and the cowboy boots and the Music Row and the big kind of commercial country thing. but it does have a really fabulous underbelly of creators, visual artists, musicians, all making quite interesting and quite diverse music, if you can discover it.
Yeah. Let's talk about this wonderful album you put out last year, A Blonde on the Tracks, a genius album title, but so simple and so genius at the same time. The criterion selecting the songs with such a vast catalogue to go through, was there any particular criteria you worked to?
The initial concept for the record was for it to be all songs from Blonde on Blonde and Blood on the Tracks. Fuse the two. But I very quickly discovered when I went to do the song selection that a lot of that material had been worked over again and again by singers far more famous and set up than myself. So I eventually decided to go and explore a little further afield, hence, songs from New Morning and Planet Waves. And then finally, the icing on the cake of this record was to add one of Dylan's most recent songs, I Contain Multitudes, and put that on the album, and that kind of finished it off. It was a record that I made to kind of work myself out of a period of quite intense depression and writer's block. And so when I reflect on it now, I can see the way that those songs are also kind of telling the story of where I was at emotionally. There's certainly some of the sadder songs in Dylan's canon. I think Going, Going, Gone is just fraught, absolutely desperate, desolate. But then there's some fun ones on there too. The Man in Me is pretty fun. It's cheeky. I wanted to put a feminine twist on that. And Queen Jane Approximately is as much a love letter to the Byrds as it is to Bob Dylan on my take on it, because we've got that jangly Rickenbacker guitar.
I think that is the one particular charm of the album. You haven't gone for the obvious covers that have been done countless times before. You have pulled out a few nuggets, yeah.
Well, I guess the thing is, I wouldn't go so far to say I wouldn't call myself a Dylanologist. There are many, many people in the world who know a lot more about Dylan than I do, but I am coming to the material as a pretty hardcore fan. Yeah. I'm not one of those folks who's like, I'm just going to put on that best of Dylan. No, I'm all about the albums and going for the deep dive.
Do you think it's something of an underrated art form, the song interpreter?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I don't think that it used to be. I think that song interpretation, once upon a time, it was all there is. It was the gold standard. People like Frank Sinatra and Dusty Springfield and Elvis Presley. None of those people are renowned for writing their songs. They're renowned for bringing their own particular magic to other people's material. But I think what happened, and it's Dylan and McCartney and John Lennon really that kicked open that door for, oh, well, if you want to play the songs, you better write them as well. And that really revolutionized popular music, but it did make the singer, just as the singer, a little bit more unusual, which to me is a shame because, I'm just from where I'm standing, I'm a much better singer than I am songwriter. I try, but why? I really enjoy singing other people's songs. Dylan's a magnificent writer, and there's much wonderful material to explore, and it's part of that folk tradition too. Yeah, carrying on the legacy.
Now, is it true you put the project on hold for a while after you started recording in 2017?
Yeah, I'm hopeless. I've got a PhD in procrastination. So basically what happened is I made the record, or I made 6 tracks from the record in 2017, wrapped it all up, put a bow on it, and it sat in my Dropbox for 2 years because I'd started writing my own songs again. I'd sort of broken through my kind of down period, and Dylan helped me do that, and going and recording these songs really kind of got that little ember going. But so I just started writing my own songs and working on my own projects and going out on tour, and I just forgot about it. And when the pandemic happened and everything shut down, I thought, oh, I'll go back to this Dylan project and see what I can do with it. I had the time at home to focus on it and give it a little bit of love and I guess work out what I was going to do with it. And it worked out quite well, I think, because Dylan had his record coming out, Rough and Rowdy Ways, and I put my record out, and I think it got a lot more love than it might have got had I put the album out in 2017, because there was a feverish adoration for Bob Dylan happening last year that I haven't seen in my lifetime, perhaps. I think people being stuck at home, they really, and not being able to go to live shows, that comfort of having him releasing music really activated something in the fans, and so that really helped my record too. I feel really lucky. For once in my life, putting something off has been perhaps a good idea.
I think if we could ask Bob, I think the thing he would most like about this album is the fact that you have covered something as recent as I Contain Multitudes. Were you really focused on getting some newer material from Bob on the record?
I hadn't been, and my one regret about the record is that much of it is songs from 65 to 75, and I wish that I had maybe put something from Love and Theft on the album or track from Empire Burlesque or Infidels. You know, I'm a big fan, and so I have some regrets about not going into the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s with Bob. With I Contain Multitudes, what happened is I just fell in love with the song when I heard it, and I hadn't seen any of my friends or my family for about 6 weeks at that point. So all of my feelings were just right up close. Everything felt so intense, and that song just bowled me over and left me devastated. I really felt like I had no choice but to record it, and I'm so glad that I did.
Long shot, I guess, but has there been any feedback from Bob's people to whether he's aware of the album?
No, absolutely not. I don't know if Dylan knows about the record. I would say his managers know, just because when you do record another person's song, there is that extra layer of logistics where you've got to ask for rights and make sure that Dylan is getting paid. So they call them mechanicals in the music business. So you've got to do it right. So his management companies certainly know that I've made the record because they're getting money from me. I'm paying Mr. Dylan for the privilege of being able to sing his songs, but I don't know if Dylan himself has heard it, and you know that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't make the record to kind of say, hey, look at me, Bob, look at me. I made the record, you know, to work myself out of a jam creatively and also out of pure love for the material. And I couldn't be happier with how it's all gone and worked out.
Interpreting Bob Dylan songs from a woman's perspective, was there anything in particular you focused on there?
Yeah, I did. That was part of the song selection. I really did want to not just play songs that I connected with or felt that I sang well, but I did want to do those ones where it would add a unique feminine twist to have a woman singing them. So all that, because my voice is quite tender and you know, a tender romantic voice. So all of that acerbic acid tongue that you get on a song like Dylan's original recording of One of Us Must Know Sooner or Later, that's gone. From my version, there's more, it's less bitter and more, I guess, tender resignation. Yeah. But You're a Big Girl Now, then to me also, it's like a song of the self. It's like singing a monologue to the self rather than an outside character that Dylan might be addressing. And the same goes for Queen Jane. It's all about like a kind of internal dialogue with one's own sub-personalities.
I love what you do with Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. Was that one of the more challenging tracks on the album to tackle?
Yeah, it was. And it was... I mean, it shows you so much about my commercial instincts. It was the first song I picked to do on the record. And it was the only one for me that was essential. If another recording hadn't worked out, I might have dropped it. But to me, Sad-Eyed Lady, it's the Hamlet of Dylan's catalogue, and I just had to have a go of it. It's my favourite Dylan song. It's like climbing Everest, and I'm absolutely terrified to be playing it live because it's a piece. But I love the challenge of that too. I mean, I just think Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands is the greatest love letter ever committed to tape. And you know, I am a romantic, and so I definitely wanted to try it on for size.
Well, I'm pretty sure he's never done it live himself, so that's quite a thing you're doing. You're not the first person to release an album of Bob Dylan covers. No doubt you won't be the last. I see Chrissy Hines just put one out recently. What do you think it is about Dylan's songs that make them so open to interpretation?
I think that the melodies are utterly glorious. You know, people think about him as a lyricist, but the melodies are absolutely beautiful. And also, I mean, the catalogue is incredibly diverse. There's a great depth of range in those songs. You know, you've got storytelling songs like Hurricane, and then you've got very, very intimate love songs like Simple Twist of Fate or I've Made Up My Mind to Give Myself to You. I mean, that particular song, or To Make You Feel My Love, you know, those songs sound like standards. They could have been, I'd love to hear someone like Tony Bennett or Frank Sinatra or one of those kind of classic singers sing songs like that. But there's a lot of character. There's a lot of room to move. I think the fact that Dylan has reinterpreted his own songs over time in the live performance as well really opens up the playing field a bit, because even he is not attached to the original recordings. He has a lot of fun. And, you know, like when you go and see Paul McCartney in concert, which I was blessed to do last time I was in Australia, it was really great. But, you know, when you go and see Paul McCartney and Paul McCartney plays Yesterday, it sounds like yesterday. When you go and see Bob Dylan play Times They Are A-Changin', it takes 2.5 minutes before you know. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And that really, it gives those of us who want to reimagine his songs a nice wide playing field.
Yeah. Hey, you made some wonderful videos to go along with some of the songs on this album. Tell us about those.
Oh, right. I have never made a music video in my life until lockdown. And I'm not a videographer, but I do love visual art. So I started to get into collage animation. And so I'm very inspired by Monty Python. Those Monty Python animated videos. So I wanted to kind of have a little bit of fun with cut and paste and see what I could do, and also kind of celebrate some of the 60s and 70s iconography that's still so influential today. So one of the records is an homage to the artwork of Milton Glaser, who made that amazing Bob Dylan drawing illustration where he's got the rainbow curly hair.
Yeah, another one. Yep.
Font at the bottom. So one of my music videos is a little bit of an homage to that. Another of the music videos, the I Contain Multitudes video, it has little pictures of all the people that he mentions in the song, because for listeners who haven't heard that song before, it's one of Dylan's great list songs where he kind of rattles off all the things that he likes and loves. So it's got everybody in it, from Edith Piaf to the Rolling Stones to Walt Whitman to Edgar Allan Poe, and, you know, French fries, like fast food. It's really showcasing his tragicomic genius, but it was a very visual song, so it was quite lovely to bring that to life in animation. It really lent itself to it.
Now, you did release a song of your own last year as well after the album came out, The Soft Apocalypse. Was that a result of you snapping out of that writer's block that you were previously in?
Absolutely, yeah. And it was, I guess, a desire to to really document where I was at emotionally, physically, spiritually. Nashville was a pretty ghastly place to be in for much of last year. And I say that because it just got hit so badly with so much awful stuff. I mean, literally the week before the pandemic, there was a tornado that ripped through East Nashville, which is where I live, and decimated houses and buildings and shops. The roof blew off like numerous places. You know, people died. It was it looked like a war zone in my neighborhood. It was truly devastating. And then there was the pandemic, and that stretched out for ages. And then there was the incredible groundswell of sort of protest and reckoning with the death of George Floyd in America. So it was such an intense place to be and such an intense time. And I really wanted to document that feeling of desolation and loneliness. And I could really feel my mental health slipping, but I was just enough on the good side to be able to write about it before I got into the funk. And so that's what I did.
It wouldn't surprise if you worked painstakingly over that song, but I believe it came quite quickly.
Yeah. I'm very impressed with the amount of research you've done. This is nice. Thanks. Yeah, I wrote it on the 4th of July.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't really go in for patriotic holidays, and I'm not a fan. I think that they're very much linked to the oppression of people and not really a fun thing to celebrate. And July 4 was an awful day in Nashville. Police were arresting protesters downtown. It's the peak of the pandemic. There's all these sort of rednecks getting drunk in the bars with no masks. And then I'm at home in isolation because I'm too terrified to leave the house. And I start hearing these like banging noises really loud, and it sounds like gunshots. It's absolutely terrifying. But of course it's fireworks. But fireworks, when you take away the visual element, just sound like violence. So it was. I'm trying to. It's really not possible for me to articulate what was going on in my mind without saying an expletive that will not be radio friendly. So I wrote a song instead.
Someone obviously very close to you and has been a great supporter of yours, Robin Hitchcock. Tell us how you first connected.
Oh my gosh! So I mean, Robin's my romantic partner. So I mean, that's sort of we spent much of last year together, and we're still together. So that's a miracle. Anybody who's spent 14 months cooped up with anyone, no, he's fabulous, brilliant. Wonderful songwriter, a real rock and roll surrealist, a creative and funny, strange, magical guy. And I met him at an Emmylou Harris concert of all places in Austin, Texas. I was standing next to this tall, handsome, older British man in a very loud shirt, and he turned down and he looked down at me because I'm 5'2" and he's 6'2", so he looked down and I looked up and he said, "Who's that guitar player?" And I said, "Oh, that's Jed Hughes. He's Australian. I'm Australian. He plays in Emmylou's band," because I'm a massive Emmylou Harris fan. Yeah. And then he said, "Oh, and is this song a new song?" And I said, "Oh, no, it's old. It was written by Roger Miller in 1957. and we've been inseparable ever since. It's been quite a journey.
That's wonderful. Let's talk about the upcoming tour. Band lineup. Who have you got in the band?
Yeah, so I'm really, really lucky. It's an amazing band that's been put together for me because I'm in quarantine, obviously, so I can't head to rehearsals just yet. Though it's been put together by Darren Middleton. He's amazing. He's in Powderfinger. Mark Wilson from Jet's going to be in the band. Marty Brown from Art of Fighting is in the band too, and Kathleen Halloran, who plays with Kate Sobrano, is in the group as well. All of the band are pretty much Melbourne based. So
Yeah.
a lot of your listeners will know and love these players and have seen them play in many, many different formats over the years. But it's the first time I've ever played with this group. And I mean, how lucky am I? I've barely hung out with anybody at all in over a year, and very soon I'm going to land in Melbourne and head straight into rehearsals with a really killer group. It's going to be so fun.
That's awesome. Are they rehearsing without you at the moment while you're in quarantine?
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah, you bet they are. And I'm rehearsing too. I'm serenading everybody else. Everybody's stuck in this apartment hotel complex. Heard Mr. Tambourine Man a lot yesterday. We heard it a lot again today.
Oh, lucky them. So will there be 100% Dylan material in the show?
Yeah, the whole point of the show is to really celebrate Dylan's songwriting craft and I guess kind of make up for the fact that it's unlikely that he'll be in Australia for a while. So I'm volunteering myself as an unlikely feminine substitute. And we'll do songs from my record, Blonde on the Tracks. But as that record is, it's pretty mid-tempo, what we are going to do is play some of the more rollicking Dylan numbers as well.
Cool.
So we'll play some favourites. It's not just going to be limited to my stuff. We'll play things like, at times they are a changing and Like a Rolling Stone and Just Like a Woman. And I think we're going to do Sweetheart Like You from Infidels. We're going to have a little bit of fun with the set list and taking requests as well. So, John, if you have one, there's still time.
I am a Dylanologist, so I will. I'll scour the albums and find a real rarity for you. Did the Soft Apocalypse kick off a new wave of songwriting for you? Have there been much more songwriting from you in lockdown?
Absolutely. At the beginning of this year, I started a project where I write a new song a week, which is absolutely terrifying, really confronting that kind of procrastination head on. And some songs are better than others, and some need to be reworked and, a little bit more love and construction. But I'm really trying to write a lot more material, and being isolated has certainly helped that. Though I am starting to miss the stimuli of the outside world. I can't wait to go to Melbourne and catch public transport and sit in a bar. And so much of songwriting is getting inspiration from the shimmering details of everyday life. And a little bit of attention to details starts to kind of, you get very vague if you haven't had a lot of stimuli. So I have been writing songs. I've written 15 songs this year, and I'm hoping that once I get out and about too, I'll have some more inspiration to kind of pull from the real world.
So it sounds like the next recording project won't be Blonde on the Tracks too. It'll be an album full of Emma Swift songs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely doing another album of Emma Swift songs, and that will be pretty soon. I'm going to go into the recording studio kind of straight after the tour and make an album with Wayne Connolly in Sydney, who's fantastic. And I won't rule out recording Dylan songs again, though it's funny, I didn't feel that much pressure when I recorded Blonde on the Tracks. But Blonde on the Tracks too, or Blonde on Blonde, or whatever we're going to call it. I feel like it's got to live up to Blonde on the Tracks or be better.
Yeah,
and that's insane amount of that's a little bit too much to think about right now.
Yeah. Hey, Emma, thanks so much for your time. Welcome home, and we're really looking forward to the Melbourne show. And we've got a little bit of a COVID scare happening down here at the moment. I hope it doesn't get any more serious and the show goes ahead. I'm pretty sure it will, and I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, fab. I'll see you at the Palais on June 17.
I'll be there with bells on. Thanks, Emma. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.